I had to analyze the original Robocop because Hollywood made a remake mistake. Now it's time to prepare ourselves for that mistake.
I review movie previews.
Seriously? They're remaking Robocop? Is nothing sacred? Hey, by the way, I'm the movie preview critic, and welcome to Movie Night, a feature-length critic's commentary in which you at home sync the film with this audio. The purpose is to break the dramatic structure of a movie down scene by scene. To make sure that everything's matching up, I'll be mentioning the time code every now and then. And don't be concerned if there's moments of silence lasting anywhere from 10 to 30 to 60 seconds. There's nothing wrong with your audio, it's just me taking some time to gather thoughts. So get your copy of the movie ready to play in just a moment. Robocop is one of those few films that holds up after 25 years. But more importantly, the story feels current, the drama is still impactful, and the emotions feel real. From the writing to the acting to the directing, it's a harmonious cinematic symphony of action sci-fi quality. Is there really anything more than laziness and greed motivating this remake? That's why we're here, to take a breath and objectively look at all of the inspired elements that came together to make the original an instant classic. Is there a need for this story to be retold now? And if so, how can this myth be reinterpreted so as to help us make sense of our current world? Which is what the best timeless stories are able to do. While entertaining us, they're able to dramatize our time, decode it, analyze it, explore it, and offer some answers. Or at the very least, ask new questions. Have the questions that the original Robocop asked been answered? Or are the answers that it offered now out of date? This movie night is also the beginning of a journey through the entire Robocop trilogy. We're going to be searching for the movie truth of the highly anticipated and totally disappointing sequels. We'll be focusing our discussion on how such a rich character and interesting universe were ruined by lazy cliches and assembly line filmmaking mentality. This really could have been one of the great trilogies in movie history. Instead, it's a one-hit wonder that spawned a lot of wannabes. Let's get ready to press play and watch one of the great movie experiences of the 1980s in 3, 2, 1. Robocop is the kind of movie experience that we don't get to have much of nowadays. I'll get a little bit deeper into why that is at the end of the film as the credits are rolling, but for now the main focus is going to be the story, the screenplay structure, and the really excellent filmmaking. Here by Paul Verhoeven, who in 1987 made his Hollywood American debut with the underestimated, unpredicted success of Robocop. 30 seconds into the film, love how this just starts. We get this disembodied kind of hovering shot of the city, Robocop, the logo, and an excellent music cue by Basil Polidoris, a composer who put his signature on a lot of classic films of the 80s, including Red Dawn and Conan the Barbarian. One of my core beliefs lately is that a film is only as memorable and as powerful as the score that accompanies the action on screen and that heightens the emotions that take place between the characters. Take a look at your list of favorite films ever, and I'm betting that most of them have truly memorable classic scores. 1 minute 22 seconds into the movie, we have a Paul Verhoeven classic technique, which is the satirical newscast, and coming up we'll also get a satirical commercial. This is something that he's establishing right now with Robocop in 1987, and will continue with Starship Troopers about 10 years later. These techniques are used in Total Recall, but they're not so humorous. They're a little more serious in terms of just conveying what's going on with the political world, the social world in that film. But here in Robocop, it's a little harder hitting. In Total Recall, it's used more to kind of give a bigger picture of the universe that the story's set in. You don't really laugh too much. You get these glimpses of the World Series taking place in Tokyo. You don't really have this balance of commenting on our current society in this humorous way that here takes place in Robocop. We meet Dick Jones, and now we're going to meet Clarence Boddicker through this newscast, so this is a great way to kind of just immerse us right away into this world. Something that really doesn't happen nowadays in a lot of filmmaking, that the writing and the writers, the creators, take that extra step, the extra effort to paint the full picture for themselves, so that when they point the camera and start to reveal this image, this world that we're going into, they for themselves know what's going on. And it's not really born out of cliches or some predetermined, pre-market tested material. It's something that's original for them, and they're just doing it to fill in the blanks so they can tell a more authentic story. That really doesn't happen nowadays. Mostly we just get the, okay, this worked in this film, that was popular, the audience remembered it from another film, let's just put it in. No one's really going to demand too much from the stories nowadays, especially if we've seen the characters before, and what they do is predictable and expected. Robocop is a joy of just unexpected fun and gore and blood and shock. Three minutes, 58 seconds. We're behind the scenes at the police station. We've just met Officer Alex Murphy, played by Peter Weller. And as an actor, I really feel that he might have been chosen, maybe not consciously, just on that kind of subconscious level, because he looked a little bit like Joe Montana and Wayne Gretzky, two of the biggest sports figures of the 80s, especially in 87. They're arguably both at the peak of their careers and of their popularity. And each of them kind of represent this honest, kind of good old boy, small town, Superman 1950s, aw gee, aw shucks kind of honesty, a sort of American purity. In 1987, there's a lot of pro-America. It's Cold War time, so it's the US versus Russia versus the USSR. Action movies, American heroes, Rocky IV just came out. So there's this fervor for kind of, let's go USA. And I think that the character of Murphy looks like an average American kind of hero. And I think subconsciously, Verhoeven might have been playing on that sports figure. We tend to put our sports figures up on these pedestals as our modern day heroes. And he kind of looks like them. So when he gets gunned down, when he's just brutally destroyed as a human being, it feels that much more powerful, whether we realize it or not. The shot right there, 5 minutes, 30 seconds, of the nameplate Murphy is a little callback and a foreshadowing. We've just seen the other nameplate of a fallen officer taken off his locker, and we get the sense that this happens a lot, that Detroit's a dangerous place, and Murphy is going to meet that fate, and something twisted and unexpected is about to happen. We meet Lewis here in the middle of doing what she does, much like we meet Marion in Raiders of the Lost Ark. In that film, she's having a drinking contest, a shot contest with a guy who's like 3 times her size, and she handles him no problem. That's a great way to meet a character. You don't need them to tell us who they are. It's better if they show us. So here, she kicks this criminal's ass, and Murphy knows that she can handle her own. Another little cue here, 6 minutes, 35 seconds, as Murphy drives the cop car up the ramp. The back of it hits the cement and there's a spark that's gonna be called back later when Robocop starts driving. We, of course, know that it's Murphy as Robocop, but it'll be a little cue to the other characters that this is him. And now the idea of, can you really get rid of a person's humanity, of their spirit, of their soul, if you want to go to that level of analysis? Can you truly rid that from a part of a human being that's fused with technology? And that's one of the topics, one of the issues that Robocop deals with. Not on the nose, not standing on the soapbox and preaching, but just bringing up the idea and allowing the story to explore it, and allowing us to decide how we want to take that, giving us the chance to put our questions, our concerns within the story. Here we go to OCP, 7 minutes, 35 seconds. We are in the boardroom at the very top of the building, and great shot here because through the windows we can see the entire city. And it gives us this sense that OCP just hovers above everything. It's just this mega corporation that towers above the average man. They are at the center of the city, and they are looking down on it. And here we get a nice shot of the old man, the boss of OCP, 8 minutes, 20 seconds. He's very much a huge figure in the foreground here with the background of the city. Nicely shot by Verhoeven, good decision from a filmmaking point of view. And he's talking about the cancer of crime in old Detroit and how OCP is going to build a new Detroit. So there's this other idea about the power of corporations, something that started to be addressed in the late 60s, early 70s in filmmaking. One of the most popular films that brought that idea up was Network. The whole idea that corporations are now the new nation, that it really isn't a battle between nations, it's a battle between businesses. Dick Jones takes the podium. We're getting nice visual shots here of Bob Morton and his friend, colleague in the glasses, who is one of the few characters that makes an appearance in all 3 Robocop films. Donald Johnson. I had no idea that was his name. I had to look it up, and I don't think that his character's name is said in the film at all. Great shot here of Dick Jones with the TVs in the background. Each screen is going to be displaying a different sector of business, a different area that OCP has its tentacles in. We get the sense that OCP, Omni Consumer Products, really great name, very cool logo design. The red in the background and the logo kind of give us this subconscious uneasy feeling. Of course, it's tied in with the Nazi logo. Anything red background with some kind of symbol in front, that's forever tied to our emotions with the Nazi flag. So we get a cue that OCP is not to be trusted. It's a dangerous corporation. It's only out for power and profit and greed, and it doesn't really care about people. At 10 minutes, we're introduced to Ed-209. Very cool design. 1987. There really weren't a lot of films that were this ambitious in terms of their big screen science fiction exploration, sci-fi experiments. And especially in the execution of the special effects, we have to give credit to everyone involved in this movie for making this look real enough. Now, watching this on Blu-ray on a high-def TV, obviously we're going to be able to tell that by today's standards this is primitive and it looks a little bit clumsy, that this is totally faked. Here, with Dick Jones explaining that's a life-size replica, that's a life-size model of an Ed-209, so that looks good, but when Ed-209's animated, starts moving and has to fire, it does look a little bit cheap, but it still feels real enough. I'll take this any day over CGI. CGI just has, at this point, too much of a hyper reality to it. You don't really get that emotional impact from this. Here, Ed-209, still scary. And here when he reacts to the guy holding the gun, and we have the scientist in the background, it still looks good. Special effects really top notch here for the time. And because of that, we feel the weight as it walks. We feel intimidated by it. And there's something to be said, much like watching the first 3 Star Wars films versus the prequels, that the puppetry, just that palpability, really adds a lot to the experience. You can really tell when there's CGI and green screen going on. Here, at 11 minutes, 59 seconds, you have 30 seconds to comply. And the guy does not comply. Ed-209 starts going haywire, and he just obliterates this guy. Just totally turns him into mincemeat. That's a little bit cheesy there. 12 minutes, 18 seconds, the smoke coming out of the guns in the background. But we get the point. Notice the symbolic nature of what happened. The guy gets gunned down and he lands on the model of New Detroit. So as if to say, this is what it's going to take to bring this idea that OCP has to fruition. It's going to take a lot of bloodshed. A lot of innocent people are going to lose their lives because of the motivations going on here, because of the technology being invented. That guy is a symbol of the average Detroit citizen that's going to be moved out of the way because OCP wants to get what they want. The blood here and just the level of gore was something new. Verhoeven is really pushing it. In the late 70s and early 80s, we did have the slasher movie come about and really take hold. So by 87, we've seen a lot of Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. If we go indie horror, there's movies like The Prowler and Maniac that take the gore and the blood to extreme levels. In the 70s, we had the Vietnam War broadcast in our living rooms, and as it was said, Vietnam was not necessarily lost in the battlefield, but in the living room, because it was the first war to be brought home for every person to see through new technology, and because it was unpopular with the American public, protests, it was lost in our minds before it was physically lost on the battlefield. At the same time, it scarred us because we got to see the horrors of war. And in the 80s, we're getting movies like Platoon, Hamburger Hill, Apocalypse Now at the end of the 70s. There's that now artistic inspiration, motivation, and almost obligation to make sense of the horrors that have just befallen an entire generation. And much like OCP kind of wanting to have their agenda and to use this technology to rid the streets of crime, to privatize the police force and basically make them products to kind of go out, do what they need to do and not really care about their lives and their families. There was that protesting feeling in the 70s and 60s about the war that American soldiers were just being used to further some other interests beyond democracy in the Vietnam War. Not to get too political. Murphy and Lewis, they're having their coffee break. We get the nice TJ Laser moment when he's swinging the gun around, and he mentions that his son likes the TV show, so he learned how to do that for him. 15 minutes, 10 seconds, we meet one of the most underrated, classic movie bad guys ever. Clarence Boddicker, played by Kurtwood Smith, totally against type. This kind of reminds me of the casting that James Cameron had intended for the first Terminator just 3 years before this, where the Terminator in his mind was supposed to be skinny and very inconspicuous, someone that could blend in. So by making him look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, from a story point of view, from a logic point of view, it's counterproductive if you're trying to sneak a Terminator in amongst the population because he's so muscular, he stands out. It wouldn't necessarily make for a good assassin kind of killing machine. Kurtwood Smith very much kind of fills that role of someone who you really don't expect to be this psychotic murderer. He's got the glasses on, and he kind of looks like a teacher, like a nerd, someone that you wouldn't necessarily be afraid of if you saw them walking down the street coming at you. Arnold Schwarzenegger, on the other hand, way more muscular and intimidating. You would think twice about walking past. You might cross the street, or, if you had some kind of weapon, you'd be ready to use it. Just the attitude here is something that defines this character. From a writing point of view, if you're thinking of a bad guy, quote-unquote bad guy, never want to use that term because bad guy just implies someone tying an innocent girl to the railroad tracks while he's twirling his mustache. So every character in any kind of movie should be three-dimensional. Every character, just like us in life, has a real life, and it's really up to the camera, who you point the camera on and who you stick the camera with, which determines who the main character of the story is. It's all about the structure. Love that line, "Can you fly, Bobby?" And they just toss him out. Ruthless. He's willing to betray one of his own people. Doesn't care. And everyone here is pretty psychotic, pretty crazy in terms of the gang that Clarence controls. 17 minutes 40 seconds. Murphy and Lewis go to the abandoned factory, the hideout of this gang, and they're going to take them on their own. They've called for backup, but we get the sense that the Detroit Police Department is stretched to their limit. No one's really motivated. Everyone's afraid. And it's not really going to turn out too well for them. We know that they're either both going to die or the gang is going to capture them. Something bad is going to happen. That's what we can predict as an audience. But the joy, the shocking joy, and the exhilaration as just a moviegoer in watching this is we don't know just how bad it's going to get and what kind of twist it's going to take at this point. "18 minutes, 25 seconds. Mind if I zip this up? So there's this great comedic dialogue, and then we get the close-up of her eyes as she looks down, and he's going to take advantage of that. Knock the gun out, punch. She falls. This is moving really quickly. Scenes are short, to the point. Let's define basic screenplay structure for an American film. It's usually the story of a main character that's pursuing an objective with an opponent that's trying to stop them from achieving that objective. They usually have someone to talk to, someone to share their emotions with, talk about how the events of the film, the struggle, the drama are affecting them, so that much like a Greek chorus, we in the audience can now gain access to the inside of the main character, to their heart, to their soul. We feel how things are affecting them. And there are usually stakes. What's going to happen if this main character doesn't get what they want? What's the worst thing that can happen to them? If those stakes aren't high, we're not really going to care. In Robocop, at this point, it's life and death, him capturing the gang, and he's in the middle of their hideout. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. Classic line, 19 minutes, 50 seconds into the film, as he says that to Emil, a name for a bad guy that you really don't hear much in films, E-M-I-L. So just giving characters authentic, real names just gives us a little more of a sense of a true reality, instead of just, well, this is a typical name that you give a bad guy, so we're just going to throw it on here. Why bother doing the work? Each of these characters has a full name. Even if we don't hear it on screen, it's important as an actor, you're going to ask, well, what's the background on my character? Where do they come from? Who are they? And what motivates them? So even if we don't hear the motivation spoken aloud, we get the sense through their actions. Actions always speak louder than words. Think through each character. Take the effort. Those are the movies that we remember. That's why Robocop stands out as a great science fiction action film that had a very high concept to it. Robot Cop. The writers apparently were inspired by Blade Runner. Someone told them that the premise of that film was a cop hunts robots. So they just spun the idea around a little bit. Obviously, in 1987, this film, from a commercial perspective, you're a studio looking to greenlight it, and the question is, well, what movie is it like? What popular, successful movie is it similar to? And why would I want to invest my money in it? Is there kind of a guarantee that people would be interested? That on some level they would be pulled to see this? So Robocop's very similar in tone to Judge Dredd. It's got a little bit of Dirty Harry in it. And the whole robot, metal, main character thing is kind of like the Terminator. In fact, in the preview, Robocop uses the Terminator theme music in it. So check that out. On a subconscious level, the marketers knew what they were doing. "21 minutes, 53 seconds, heartbreaking moment here. Clarence Boddicker being ruthless. And the hand just explodes. Ah. Wow. Oh. And then great, emotionally effective close-up of Murphy in shock as soon as that happens. We have Lewis hearing the shot, running towards it. Just how Verhoeven films Peter Weller and how he acts this. 22 minutes, 22 seconds. He's walking, holding his hand. He's totally in shock. His eyes are glazed over. And now the henchmen are just going to ruthlessly butcher him. The inhumanity here. Oh, and just, oh my God. Years later, totally shocking and ruthless. I'm out of ammo. Lewis has to watch through the gate. She can't do anything. And just the way Peter Weller is just acting here, it's painful, man. Again, this is the classic American wanting to do a good thing, hero, hometown boy, getting wasted, man. Getting wasted by cold-hearted, ruthless gang. The music here just swells and adds to that. Again, we have to give super credit to Basil Polidoris. This score swings between kind of bombastic, really powerful hero movie-making score, very much like John Williams, something from Indiana Jones or Star Wars, where you have kind of the hero music cue, the Robocop music. We know it when we hear it. But then in the tender moments later when he's going to be at his house remembering things about his family, and just here as he's being wheeled into the hospital, .24 minutes. The close-ups that are going to follow, the low angle here up at the ceiling as we see the lights. Murphy, as if to say that his life is fading from him. The music is just as ruthless as that scene we've just watched, where it's really going to just latch onto our emotions and make us feel that this is a good guy that just was senselessly killed, heartlessly killed. I mean, that's a brutal, one of the most brutal deaths in any mainstream American movie, summer blockbuster that I've seen before or since. Verhoeven is pushing us. How much are we willing to accept? How much violence can we take? In 1987 at this time, TJ Laser is kind of a little comment on that. Again, a fake TV show, fake commercials, heightened sort of unreal newscasts. They're all done to just make fun of but also comment at the same time of what we're accepting as a society. How much violence do we need to see on TV before it really twists our humanity, before we become a Clarence Boddicker, we become deadened to human suffering, and that other person becomes a product, becomes something like a Robocop in Ed 209 that you can just turn on and turn off. If you lose one, you get another one to replace it. That connection, that human connection is fading. It's becoming dull because we see so much death. It's filmed very much like an emergency room reality TV series. An 87 reality TV series was pretty much non-existent. If there were any, they would have probably been ER medical shows or something like that. The biggest reality show at the time would have been talk shows. Talk shows proliferated like a virus through the late 80s and the early 90s, with Jerry Springer and Oprah kind of becoming the winners by the middle to late 90s. Here, we basically get a restart of the screenplay structure. .26 minutes, 30 seconds into the film. Really great filmmaking again, because the last point of view that we left was the dying and dead Murphy. We cut to a point of view and we assume right away that this is Murphy. And as we see, we're watching it through kind of this hazy video screen, so we get the sense, okay, this isn't kind of a human perspective. Scientists are doing some work here, and because it's Robocop, we're assuming, okay, obviously he's going to become Robocop now. Great camera angle up at these characters hovering down, much like all the interior shots of OCP so far when we see the elevators. It's them going up the elevator and just this towering building, this monolithic creation that you get the sense it takes like 5 minutes to get to the top. The power of the corporation. a little tease here, 27 minutes, 30 seconds of the Robocop arm. There's something to be said for practical effects, a real robot arm there. I love how Bob Morton, his character here, really consistent, really thought through. On the one hand, we like him because he's fighting Dick Jones. Dick Jones is way more ruthless than he is, and we get the sense that Bob Morton has a little more humanity. His project involves using a human and merging it with technology, whereas Dick Jones just wants to create the Ed 209, just total technology. There's no humanity left. And because they're essentially two assholes, they're basically two bad guys, we as an audience will root for the nicer of the two bad guys. So we're more in Bob Morton's corner at this point than we are in Dick Jones's. And as we see Bob Morton, we want to like him, but he's very pompous. Again, it's the mid to late 80s, so Wall Street, the greed of Wall Street's been renewed. We're going to have the movie Oliver Stone's Wall Street the same year. And the whole focus is on profit and greed. And if the 80s look greedy, then what about the late 1990s and even the recent 2000s and 2000 teens? So all of this is informing the world and the society of Robocop. Again, work that needs to be done if you want to tell a really powerful story. We need to get that bigger picture. We need to feel like it's a real world, that there's more going on, and that society and the morals and the acceptable rules of that culture are influencing all of the characters. Bob Morton asks Donald, "Who is this?" at 29 minutes, 25 seconds. Sergeant Reed, and he's another character along with Donald, and Lewis being the third character, who are in all of the three Robocop films. We'll talk more in the sequels how those movies failed to have the same power and impact that this movie did. And it all starts with character. The reason we care about this movie is because of Murphy and Robocop as characters. Love this scene here as all the cops just run down the hall. Their excitement and curiosity mimic ours. The audience is just as curious. We've gotten nice teasing hints, great shots from Verhoeven, just slowly unveiling hints of what Robocop's going to look like. Let's give it up at this point, 30 minutes, 16 seconds, for the sound effects of this film. These effects did win an Oscar, and they're so well done. The power of adding the thud as Robocop walks, or that little robotic, mechanized sound effect as he turns his head and moves his arms. Let's give it up for Peter Weller on working through how this Robocop would move around, and along with the sound effects, making it believable. Here, Donald tasting the baby food, that endears him to us a little bit more. Just these little details of each character, they have their own quirks, their own personality traits that separate them from everybody else, and it makes it feel like you have real three-dimensional people in this universe. Everyone's not just there to serve a function, they are, because it is a created story. But let's put these as real as they can be characters with their own motivations and beliefs and attitudes and have them clash with the other characters. You get the sense that Bob Morton and Donald, if one of them were up for a promotion, they would still fight with each other. You know, they wouldn't necessarily be friends, so maybe it's just a polite friendship because they have similar interests. Serve the public trust, uphold the law, protect the innocent. The three prime directives of Robocop at 31 minutes 42 seconds. And now we're going to get a foreshadowing little hint of Directive 4 is classified. Love how Bob Morton kisses the girl and says, "I love this guy." Great quote. A lot of the quotes in this film that became popular quotes, movie memorable lines, are not intended to be such. They're not wink wink at the camera, here's what worked in the previous film, so now we're going to say "I'll be back" every time this character's in a movie. While it's a nice, funny thing to do when in the moment of the 80s that becomes a Schwarzenegger catchphrase and you go to the films because you expect, okay, when is he going to say the line? Okay, we get a good laugh out of it, we cheer, and then we go on with the story. At this point, it's let's just be as authentic as possible to the story, and whatever becomes memorable because we, the audience, decide that it's worthy of that. Much like Daniel Day-Lewis's line in There Will Be Blood when he said, "I drink your milkshake." Did Paul Thomas Anderson know that was going to become a catchphrase? It's possible in the back of his mind he thought, okay, this could be, if it's played right, something that sticks out. But it's really us that decide if it becomes kind of this verbal meme. No matter how much you want to force a meme, it can't be calculated. It just happens because there's some part of us that recognizes it as something unique, special, and it just triggers something unpredicted, and it takes off. Same thing with one-liners in films. Robocop is one of those movies where there's a lot of great lines, but it's because the characters delivered them authentically based on who they are in the moment of the conflict, in the moment of the story, and we decide, oh, that was hilarious, or that just perfectly fits the situation, and we're going to be repeating those lines. "33 minutes, 50 seconds, the great theme music. As Robocop takes off from the police station and goes off to fight crime, just that powerful Robocop theme music just really bellows out and just connects us, and it just really makes you feel like this guy's going to be able to accomplish anything. And watch out, crime, he's going to clean the city up. Now, basically, we have a montage of we as an audience want to see what the cool things that Robocop's capable of doing, what they are. Much like when Peter Parker gets bitten by the spider, or Bruce Wayne designs a bat suit and gets the Batmobile and various weapons, or Superman starts to discover his powers. As soon as that happens to any kind of hero character, or Neo undergoes martial arts training with Morpheus, we want to see him start to use these abilities, start to convey that they're becoming powerful and becoming a new character, a new person. Here it's time for Robocop to scare some justice into the city. And this here is just hilarious. F me, f me, f me. This guy, he plays it a little bit over the top. He's very Cro-Magnon, is just the way that his facial hair is, and he's a little bit buff and ruthless. And maybe he's just portrayed as being on drugs. I'm sure Verhoeven, before the scene starts, says, okay, you're on meth or you're on coke or whatever, and you just want money so you can go get more. And that doesn't need to be conveyed, but it does need to be authentic within that character. "35 minutes, 35 seconds. Right before that scene ended, we got the only intentional one-liner in the entire movie, one that keeps repeating itself, and that might be a comment on, at the time, the action movie one-liners, where it's, I'll buy that for $1, something that Ricky Gervais makes fun of in the HBO series Extras, which ended a few years back. And a few years after this, we have the Urkel Family Matters show, where his catchphrase is, did I do that? The next year after this, we're going to have Die Hard, with, of course, John McClane's line of Yippee-ki-yay, mother. And as these lines are being written, you can imagine that Yippee-ki-yay, mother was in that gray area of it could become a classic line, but it fits for what was happening within that moment of that scene. I'll buy that for $1 is such an over-the-top, intentional, satirical attack on forced one-liners that it just works perfectly. So amongst all these other one-liners that become popular because they're authentic to the characters and we just remember them as an audience, we have this constantly reoccurring forced one-liner. Love this shot here. Your move, creep. 36 minutes, 52 seconds. Your move, creep is another line. It could be written as a line that is being forced into pop culture memory, or one that would be just authentic for Robocop, and if we remember it, then okay, that's what we decide. We cut back to more powerful theme music, 37 minutes, 17 seconds. Robocop driving around, just going and saving people. Now, the one little logic moment that just happened, we could ask a question for, is how did Robocop know this girl was getting raped in an alley? Is there some kind of technology that he has that allowed him to see that this was going on? Is he connected to the cameras in the city? We don't get a hint of that. And is it believable that, okay, she was in a bar and maybe saw a couple suspicious guys, so she made a phone call, but then for some reason left the bar? So there's no real reason as to why Robocop runs into that situation other than maybe he was driving past it. It's a little bit forced, but we're willing to cut it some slack. Suspension of disbelief. This film is really flawless in its logic. It asks us to suspend enough disbelief that, okay, a cyborg could be created. But at the same time, it doesn't push the boundaries in terms of action leading to result in consequence. Everything that happens in this movie connects. Bob Morton steps over Dick Jones. Dick Jones gets pissed, kills Bob Morton, which leads to Dick Jones taking back over. Ed 209 goes into production. Robocop becomes the enemy. All of these step-by-step dramatic moments between characters make sense and are created from each other. This mayor hijacking the building here is played for more satire than it is reality. I want a car, and I want the city to pay for it all. 38 minutes, 59 seconds. Robocop's making his way up. One that goes really fast and gets gas mileage. How about the 6000 SUX? Yeah. It's just so ridiculous. Does it have cruise control? It's over the top. It's an illogical situation. Let the mayor go. We'll even throw in Lieutenant on the mic. That's actually an actor who's going to play a similar role, a police officer role, in Die Hard the next year. So that actor was typecast. He knew how to do a certain character really well, and he made a short living out of it. So we get the thermograph going through Robocop's eyes, which is very much Terminator-ish, and the same year here we have Predator. Predator vision is also going to give us that thermovision. Robocop here, it's kind of weird because he just pulls the guy through the wall, and you would think that his prime directives would mean, okay, you have to subdue him. You could just knock him out, but for some reason he punches him and he launches out of the window to his death. So that's another little logic moment, but from this point on, it really becomes Robocop can't do something because he's violating his prime directives. We cut back to the newscast, which opened the film, and now we get more flavoring. We get that Robocop is being acknowledged as existing in the world. We cut to Mexican nationals, American troops fighting, so very reminiscent of kind of that Vietnam footage that Verhoeven's playing off of. And red alert, red alert. This is a great comment on the Times where something as serious as potential nuclear Armageddon, which was really in the minds of everybody at this time, 1987, we're not that far off of, I believe 1983 or 84, there was a made-for-TV film The Day After starring Steve Guttenberg, which dealt with the aftermath of a nuclear war, what would happen if the bombs went off. It was something that was really frightening and kind of unbelievable in today's age, but 30 years ago, it was a real threat. It was something to really be afraid of. And now Verhoeven's making a joke out of it, that if you kind of become desensitized, something as potentially serious and threatening as Armageddon gets made fun of. And of course, that's a defense mechanism, a way to just kind of take away the gravity of the situation, but nuke 'em, the fun game from Parker Brothers. And here, of course, it's not Parker Brothers, it's a made-up company. Delta City, the future has a silver lining. We now get Bob Morton, Vice President, Security Concepts, OCP, on TV. This was pretty much the same shot as at the beginning of the film, but it was Dick Jones. So we get the sense of why Dick Jones would be mad. There's a new guy in town. His name's Robocop. Another quote-worthy line, but it's something that Bob Morton would say because he wants the television and media to have a soundbite. It's his project. He wants to become popular. We get Robocop with the kids. Stay out of trouble. Give Peter Weller, again, credit for coming up with the way that Robocop talks and the sound effects for just giving enough of a metallic ring to his voice to make it believable. This is a great scene here. Nice drama. There haven't really been a lot of long dramatic moments in this film. Great shot here. Low angle in the stall that Dick Jones is in. And love how in the background, as they're making fun of Dick Jones, everyone else's reactions because they know Dick Jones is in the bathroom. And they run out. And just a great shot here. The guy didn't even bother to finish taking a piss because he's all nervous, so he wets himself. That low angle in the stall is a great filmmaking technique for just creating an ominous, intimidating presence. In the foreground, we have Dick Jones's legs as he's sitting on the can. And in the background, we have Bob Morton really small. Even though it would seem that the people who are standing up have a stronger position, it's really that subconscious level of whatever is bigger on screen kind of hovering over us. That's where the real power is. And Dick Jones is filmed in such a way that as soon as that door opens, as soon as those legs stand up, we know that that figure is going to be intimidating and Bob Morton's going to be in trouble. You've insulted me. You've insulted this company with your bastard creation. 43 minutes, 25 seconds. I've had guaranteed military sales with Ed 209. Spare parts for 25 years. Who cares if it worked or not? So that's a comment from Paul Verhoeven as to the nature of corporate mentality. Who cares if it works or not? Who cares if it kills this innocent guy in the boardroom who lands on the future plans of Detroit as a symbol for senseless death and violence that could take place? Who cares about that as long as OCP gets what they want? The old man's not going to live forever, and when he does, I'm number 2 around here. There's a really great subtextual battle going on here, where the implications, of course, are that I have more seniority, I'm more connected, I'm more powerful than you are. You're young and kind of a go-getter, but you're not making friends with the right people, and I'm ruthless enough to take you out. And Bob Morton, even though he tries to remain calm and collected here, he gets intimidated by Dick Jones. And he has to sit down and kind of calm down. Now that scene ends with a great drive out, or a setup. Each scene in a film has to begin with a reason for it to exist. Once there's conflict and drama in a movie, once there's the main character pursuing objective with someone to stop them, all the scenes that take place are related to pursuit of the objective and stopping that pursuit, if you're taking it from the point of view of an opponent. So each scene begins with a drive-in or a payoff, and each scene ends with a setup or a drive-out. You're leaving a scene promising us future drama related to the subject that they're fighting about. Whatever the drama's centering on, we're promising that in a future scene, that struggle is going to continue. So we go into the bathroom scene with Bob Morton. He's a success. He just had the TV interview, and he's talking about Dick Jones. Throughout that scene, the battle between Dick Jones and Bob Morton is one of, my project's going to win out over yours. And it ends with, you better hope your machine doesn't mess up. You just stepped over the line. You messed with the wrong guy. So we get the sense that they're going to battle in a future scene. "46 minutes, 8 seconds, Robocop has a nightmare." Now we go to the theme of, can we take away the humanity from the technology if you merge the two? He had a dream of his murder. Slowly, that's starting to break through. And the music here is really great. It really just creates that emotional power, gives it weight, it gives it importance. Something out of the ordinary is happening here. And it backs up the camera work. Here we have the low angle of Robocop, powerful. Walking out, and he's going to run into Lewis here, which is going to add to the story of him discovering who he is. Lewis, from her perspective, has been looking at these little things that Robocop does, the way he handled his gun, the way he talks, kind of the way he looks, and she figures out that it's Murphy. And so here she's going to say it. He's just had a dream. Now he's recording everything. This man is technology, which this is great sci-fi, all science fiction, has the potential, because of the genre, to explore what's going on in this current society that it's written for in kind of in a third degree removed kind of way, where it's not so immediate. We don't feel like it's a documentary. But on some level, we recognize that, okay, it's talking about us, much like Star Trek did in the 60s, where we have a multicultural cast on a starship. It's basically a Western in space. And they're talking about current issues that are going on in 60s America. So sci-fi, almost as part of its requirement, part of the reason it exists, is to explore the potential of what we can do as people, as humanity. All the great science fiction films and stories, and a lot of great sci-fi has done that. They've taken current issues, put them in an alien, futuristic setting, and have explored them so as to give us a chance to have some kind of insight. Let me make it clear. He doesn't have a name. He's a program, a product. Is that clear? "48 minutes, 35 seconds. Bob Morton has stated part of the issue here that Paul Verhoeven is trying to explore. He doesn't have a name. He's a product. He's got a program. He's not human. But yet we've just seen that humanity is fighting through. This is the major reason why the sequels don't work, because this journey that Robocop, that Murphy is going on, of the humanity trying to re-emerge. Great line here. 49 minutes, 7 seconds. Forget it, kid. This guy's a serious ass. Just had a very emotionally distraught and intense series of scenes, so we get a joke to kind of bring a little bit of levity. Verhoeven knows the issues that are going on within this film, the issues that can be brought up, the ideas, the exploration of humanity, of creation, of technology, of corporations, of privatization, and setting it in Detroit in the mid to late 80s, where Michael Moore would make a documentary about how the city was decimated because the car manufacturing was removed from its economy, which it was built around. So these ideas now brought into a fiction film are just as powerful. So we're entertained, but at the same time, there's a little bit of food for thought. So all stories kind of do that. The sequels tend to just stay at this level. They don't further the journey of Murphy. They repeat it, they give us what we've seen before, and that's why they feel stale and been there, done that. Now here, 50 minutes, 30 seconds, we have Emil robbing the gas station. This is a great character moment for him. I bet you think you're smart. You think you can outsmart a bullet? You get the sense that he has an inferiority complex, that he doesn't feel as smart as someone who is in college or studying like that. And drop it, 50 minutes, 54 seconds. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. And that cues the memory here. No one has said that to Emil before. Now he's going to record, I know you. Now this is back to back. We had Lewis say, Murphy, it's you. And now we have Emil say, I know you, we killed you, we killed you. So now Robocop is stunned. Okay, well, what's he talking about? And now his program's starting to be affected. He's not obeying blindly just this protocol. As he's getting comfortable in this skin, as he's merging with this technology, the humanity is also expanding, and he's starting to remember things. Great sequence. This is, of course, an action sci-fi film, so we need to have some big set pieces. Love how Verhoeven keeps it consistent so that the bookworm in the gas station, we get a shot of him running away from the explosion, so that we in the audience don't wonder, oh, did that guy die in that explosion? No, we get the shot, we know what happens with him, and now we can just relax in terms of, oh, well, we know what happened to that character. Every time we see anything on screen, we start to keep tabs on it. And we want to know what the destiny of everything, of every character in a story is, if they're important in that scene. Love that this is, again, a practical effect. This is a real gas station set blowing up. It's a great explosion. In 87, it's a very solid set piece. We haven't gone to the extreme action movie set pieces of the 90s yet. Die Hard is going to set a new standard. And Rambo Part 2 was one of the biggest action films of its time. Super explosions in that one. So here, Robocop's not doing so bad. We cut to the next scene. Drive into this scene because of the previous drive out, which was, who are you? He wants to find out who Emil is and find a connection. How does he know me? Lewis says my name is Murphy. What are all these connections? Great point of view shot of him going through the police archives. That character with the glasses is kind of like almost a cliche nerd character. He's got this stuttering thing going on. And then Robocop does the metal spike middle finger, which we're going to suspend our disbelief because for some reason, all the computers in this universe have a port for that kind of device. So I guess everyone goes around with these metal optic spike fiber things, and they're able to transmit data that way. And it's a great joke, but at the same time, I guess it works. We can accept it. Here we get everyone in Clarence Boddicker's crew, all their names, their faces. Robocop's starting to put it all together. Great slow zoom in on Robocop right here as he's looking at all the pictures of the suspects, and he searches for Murphy. Murphy, it's you. That might be a little bit too much. Murphy, it's you. But we could imagine that Robocop is just playing the audio back in his mind. I'm not really a fan of films that do a lot of flashback, especially after we've just seen it in the movie. It doesn't give us, the audience, enough credit for having memories and thinking, okay, well, that's connecting back to this. Murphy deceased, close up. Robocop has found out who he was in human form. "54 minutes, 30 seconds. Primrose Lane." We're right about halfway through the film, and if you're writing a story in which a character is going on a journey, as Robocop, this would be the point where we've had the first act here of Robocop where he's become this machine, and he's great at doing his job. He's taken out crime, no problem. Now the complication, now the character journey. Who was I? What have I become? What's the nature of memory and action, and what makes you who you are? Can you just become a series of programs, of prime directives, and that's enough? Or do you need something more? What is the nature of humanity? Questions that this brings up. Love this sequence here. 55 minutes. 27 seconds. The music, again, adds so much to the emotional experience of this sequence. Cannot overstate the importance of great music in movies. When a composer just connects with the material and is able to bring out the core, that primal emotional core of what's going on with the character through these music cues, it just affects us in such a powerful way. We get the futuristic little set piece here that there isn't a human retailer here. We don't need someone to show us a property. We just have a series of TV screens. And through that, we get a virtual tour. We get someone taking us on a tour of the house. Great transitioning here of how Robocop goes to his human memory. And then how the picture was taken, 56 minutes, 30 seconds. He crunches it up. Now the music swells. Every time he gets another hit of memory, the music twists in the same way that the emotions are. He's getting angrier, he's getting overwhelmed, and it's all going to lead up to him punching the screen. Now he goes into the bedroom. Great close-up. He walks right into the camera. Verhoeven just lets it sit there. His mouth is open. He's trying to kiss her through his imagination. She disappears. Master bedroom. Now he's really enraged. The way that Peter Weller is walking here, the emotion that's conveyed, think about it as an actor, how tough it is You only have your mouth and a little bit of your cheeks, not even your nose, to convey emotion. One of the challenges and disappointments of what happened with Judge Dredd, the 90s version, is that as a comic book character, his face is always covered. Very much like Robocop, you just see his mouth. But because you get a $20 million action star in Sylvester Stallone to be the main character, as a star, he probably doesn't want his face covered up the entire film. And as an audience, you kind of want to see him. So you have an injustice done to the comic book character. Great scene here. We cut from emotional window character moment where we gain access into Robocop and Murphy's emotional state, and we cut right to him getting one of Clarence Boddicker's gang. We cut right to him starting to round up the gang. He knows who they are, he knows what they did, he knows who he was, and now it's time for justice to be served. This is all going to be brought together. All the pieces that have been moved into place are starting to form a complete picture of the total story and the movie. Bob Morton. We love him, we hate him. This scene, kind of both, where he's an executive, he's successful, it's the 80s, of course there's cocaine, and feathered hairdos for the girls here. And he's kind of living the lifestyle. And it's a great genre set piece for the tone of the story and for what it is. It's excess. It's what you want to see. The actresses here play their characters well. Same thing for Bob Morton. Now, the previous scene that we've watched him in was him and Dick Jones. Then there was a shot of him on the TV giving his little blurb regarding Robocop. Really great line here from Clarence Boddicker. Bitches, leave. Again, just the way he delivers it. Just the way he delivers it. So awesome. Classic line because of the moment. Do you know who I am? Love what Bob Morton's saying here because you can just get the sense of his ego. Do you know who I am? Then the bullet shots in the legs make it real. And again, Verhoeven not backing down when it comes to the gore. It's just these bullets are just exploding on his legs. He puts in the CD, and at that time in 87, the setup that Bob Morton has in his living room, multiple screens, CD players, a proto-DVD player, awesome. You don't feel so cocky now. Bet you're on your knees now. Whatever he's paying you, I'll double it. So he's still fighting. We have the dramatic structure going on here. Even though Dick Jones is a pre-recorded message, Clarence Boddicker doesn't say anything except bitches leave. And just the way that he dangles the grenade. Let's give it up for Kurtwood Smith as an actor. He would go on to play the father figure, kind of a sadistic father figure, who's trying to do the right thing in Dead Poets Society, and then go the exact opposite of his character here in that 70s show as the father figure there. It's just such an unexpected role. I'm cashing you out, Bob. And as he's reaching for the grenade, we as an audience want him to get it. We want him to throw it out the window. We want him to stay alive. Even though he's kind of a jerk, he didn't really deserve to die that way. He was just a cocky guy who wanted to be number one in the world of business. He didn't really want to kill anybody, but Dick Jones is way more ruthless. And that scene drives in and pays off what was set up in their bathroom altercation. And it drives out and sets up the notion of Dick Jones and Clarence Boddicker being connected. Bob Morton is done as a character. Dick Jones doesn't have to worry about him anymore. So as a screenwriter at this point, the question is, where is the drama going to come from? What is the struggle here? The objective as Robocop is to stop crime in Detroit. The objective as Murphy is to discover, okay, who are you? Who were you? Now it becomes merged. As a character of Murphy, justice will be served if Clarence and his gang are captured. As a police officer, as Robocop, same thing. Catch the biggest criminals in the city and there will be peace. This scene is really great. 1 hour, 2 minutes, 33 seconds. Clarence has a scarf, and just the way that he's talking with this guy is very uncharacteristic. It's the opposite of it's very original how they deal with each other. Love how he dips his finger into the wine, snorts it, because Clarence is a coke user, so he's kind of just maybe cleaning the pipes up, and as soon as he dips, the other guy takes the wine and he drinks it. So there's just this battle between lions in the wild here. Who's stronger? Who's not afraid of the other? So you dip your finger, I'll take a sip. I don't give a f***. You know, it's a battle, it's a measuring battle. And it comes down to literally the measuring of the guns. Everybody's pointing at each other. This whole factory shootout sequence, really great. One of the best set pieces in the movie. It's one of the biggest, along with the Ed 209 battle coming up. Love this moment here when he just starts tracking everybody. Starts tracking all the weapons. Recently saw The Green Hornet, and Kato has a natural ability in doing this, so there's a little bit of callback to that. I don't think it's an intentional thing, but basically the same sort of device used here. I love how the guy just says, "F*** you," and they all just start unleashing on him. One of my pet peeves for any kind of superhero costume is that if you're a bad guy and the face is not covered, just shoot the face. Aim for the face. Come on. We are going to know later on that, of course, it's not a human head that is behind the metal mask here. It's in fact a metal head, much like the skeleton of the Terminator, and it has the skin of the human face stretched over it, so it's a little more twisted and inhuman. So all I'm asking for here is if they would have just shot it, we just had some blood marks. Just give us a little bit of wear and tear, just like in the Terminator saga. Terminator's walking towards a bunch of police with guns. Let's see a little bit of impact from that. Let's see some wear and tear. They, of course, don't get the message that no matter how much you shoot this guy, his armor is pretty tough. One of the gang dies, one of the gang falls, so we obviously know that he's going to be alive for a later sequence. This is the showdown we've been waiting for. Clarence, of course, as the ruthless killer, heartless, doesn't care. Robocop finally knows who he is, so it's time to get some payback. Clarence Boddicker, you're under arrest. He starts reading him his rights. This film is also not afraid to swear. This is classic rated R 80s action movie making. There's a lot of swearing in this film, a lot of blood. It's pretty ruthless. And that's a good thing. It really gives a sense of this kind of animalistic jungle, this urban jungle of things going wrong, too much crime, and the music here, again, heightening every time Robocop throws him through the glass. There's another guy, OCP. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So Clarence kind of starts wimping out the minute he feels some pressure. Now we get the record, human being as a recording device. We're not too far away from that, where we've gone from film cameras to video cameras, and now our phones are able to record. So maybe the iPhone 10 will have a matrix jack into the back of our neck, and we will be able to Robocop reality. Directive 3, uphold the law. 1 hour, 6 minutes, 54 seconds. Yes, I am a cop. And he cannot kill Clarence Boddicker, because even though Murphy, the human being, who knows who Clarence is and what he did, wanted him dead in that moment, the programming, the OCP control of the half-human now stops him from doing what he wants. So he has to bring him in. Yes, I am a cop. So he's a cop, he's a robot, he's a human. All these issues in that scene being brought up.
Clarence, great characterization here again. What's the charge? He's a cop killer, great line. Dick Jones, I worked for Dick Jones in the previous scene. Just how he's saying that becomes a memorable line. Dick Jones, I work for Dick Jones. But it's the drama between Robocop and Clarence that creates that. Music again, heightening the moments. Lewis, just a hanging shot on her because she's really the one that connects us to that Murphy theme of the film. She's the one that sees the humanity beyond the robot. She's the one that brings it up. So every time we get a close-up of her, she's that window character. She's that reminder of Robocop's humanity. Now Robocop again, his objective is, I want to clean up the streets. I want to solve the murder of Murphy, bring everyone to justice who was responsible for that. His final piece, the surprise piece that we didn't know about, was that Clarence works with Dick Jones. So now he's going literally to the top of it all. OCP is above the city. At the top floor, the man who is behind it all, the funder of the crime of the city. Another shot of the elevator here, giving us the enormous scope of OCP. The music here again is great. We get the playback, just the sense that there is the working mechanics in Robocop using the technology. Really cool. This is something we hadn't seen before again. So giving us that genre, the payoff, the set pieces. The reason we care about any of this is because it's Murphy under the metal, because of the human story. If we just want genre set pieces like we get nowadays in filmmaking, they're exciting for a few moments, but there's no lingering emotional impact. Love this here. You better take me in. Sounds like I'm in a lot of trouble. And now we have the payoff for Directive 4, the secret directive put in by Dick Jones that you cannot arrest an officer of OCP. And we're going to have a really great payoff with a line that becomes a memorable one-liner, not because it's intended to be one, but because it works in the moment of the drama, and it sticks with us. When characters say authentic things based on who they are, that's when we respond to them. We have to feel the passion. Here we feel the passion of Dick Jones. We understand why he's doing what he's doing. We don't agree with it. We don't like it. But he's ruthless. One hour, 10 minutes, 25 seconds. You thought you were an ordinary police officer? You were our product, and we can't have our products turning against us. Great acting here, and even Dick Jones says, still a little fight in you, as Murphy is trying to overcome the programming. Can you will the humanity to overcome the controlled program, the robot nature? I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake. Great line that becomes line because it's repeated later as Robocop plays it back for the board of OCP, but also because it's just a great line. It's emotional, it's tied in with the story, it's tied in with the characters and their needs and their wants. Here is a showdown we've been waiting for. Ed 209 versus Robocop. Great fight. Just the real nature of glass breaking, of an actor in a suit that isn't CGI. Peter Weller's really in that thing, and it really works, man. It really feels like it's metal. It always works better when it's practical effects. It's more work in a lot of ways, but just the impact on us, it just makes it feel that much more real. We get the missile launchers going. In a movie like this, where genre is such an important aspect of the reason we go to check it out, we want to see a sci-fi action film. If there's Ed 209 in the beginning, and we just saw him use one of his weapons, when there's the fight here, we want to see him pull out all the stuff. We get missile launchers, we get the machine gun. We want to see whatever it's capable of. This gets a little bit cheesy, where he's kind of feeling around, which is okay, that's fine. As it falls on its back, It kind of squirms around like this insect, and it makes this kind of noise like an animal. That's a little bit cheesy. It should just play it like a piece of technology and gears grinding. It should be gears grinding more than some kind of a beast or an alien whining. This is a really heartbreaking scene. The music here is amazing, and it absolutely backs up the emotion of Robocop, the emotion of the police officers, and the idea of it's one of us. Prepare to fire. Wait a second, he's a cop, for God's sakes. You can't do that. We have orders to destroy it. So again, the notion of following your programming. Here we have human beings. There is no mechanical programming, but because we have orders, because it's OCP, and because the captain or whoever, the sergeant, whoever's in charge of this operation tells the other cops, we have to open fire on them, they obey. So Verhoeven's playing with these levels here that Robocop was trying to fight his directives, but he has a good excuse. He's part machine. Here we have cops kind of part of the machine as well. Interesting commentary. But totally heartbreaking that cops are shooting a cop. Great angle here. 1 hour, 14 minutes, 22 seconds as Robocop is struggling along the ground, one arm up, all the floodlights behind him, bullets raining down on him, the music just really heightening the moment. He's betrayed, he's on the run. It's emotional. A movie about a dude who becomes a robot cop is emotional. And sitting there as an audience member, we just think, somebody help Robocop, somebody show up. I'm still a little bit peeved. 1 hour, 15 minutes, 13 seconds that Robocop doesn't have any bullet damage on his face. It's not protected, and there were just like 50 cops shooting at him. There's a little bit of a hole in his visor, but come on, man. There were like thousands of bullets shot at him. That's kind of some bad acting right there during this commercial. We have the one kind of hippie-ish dude with the glasses pointing up at the dinosaur. It's back, an American tradition. I just realized a few years ago that that was a pretty on-the-nose commentary on the auto industry of America. The 6000 sucks, an American tradition. These newscasts always start out with bigger picture down to Detroit. It's always, here's what's going on around the world, then cut to what's going on in the story. Now there's the notion of the police officers going on strike. Unemployed person, you're on your own. That's the law of the jungle. After an intense sequence of Robocop failing to bring in the main opponent of the film, we get a little bit of levity with those news broadcasts and the commercials, but at the same time, a little bit of information on what's going on around. So at midnight, the streets are going to be open to all the criminals. Cut to Clarence Boddicker. He's out of jail and he's visiting Dick Jones. Out in the open, there's no one to stop them. We're seeing the ramifications of the battle with Ed 209. Everyone's cleaning it up. Like this scene a lot because even though technically they're on the same side, in any good story, there's always conflict with everyone. No one should be friends because everybody wants something, everybody's for themselves, and it's boring when everyone agrees. So he's a cyborg, you idiot. He recorded every word you said. One hour, 18 minutes. His memory is admissible as evidence. Clarence does that great thing of, like a dragon, letting the smoke come out of his nose. Well, listen, Chief, your company built the thing. They're on the same side, but yet they're against each other. Now in writing a dramatic scene, Dick Jones wants something. Clarence Boddicker wants something. How do they fight with each other using their words to get what they each want? Clarence doesn't want to bother tracking down Robocop. He's fine doing his drug deals and small-time robberies. Dick Jones says, New Detroit is going to be a place where a guy like you can make a lot of money, especially if he's got a guy like me as his friend. Clarence comes back. We have the blocking in the scene as he was far away towards the door. Dick Jones sat down, so the blocking indicates that Jones is very comfortable, and what he's about to offer Clarence is going to be irresistible. Clarence comes and joins him. Visual representation that Dick has won the scene, won the battle of the drama. He gives him the new tech. Nice little commentary. Verhoeven little commentary of Dick Jones saying, we practically are the military, and we have a setup now, a drive out, a promise that next time we see Clarence, he's going to have some awesome firepower, and he's going to be hunting Robocop. That's the result of that dramatic scene. Cut to drive in and payoff for Lewis and Robocop. Last time we saw them, we had a drive out and a setup of she's rescuing Robocop from the ambush, and she's going to take him somewhere where he can recover, and they can strategize and have some kind of battle plan to take down OCP. We get her giving him his gun and also some power tools so that he can repair himself. And now as a result of this sequence here, of these scenes, they are going to formulate some kind of plan, some kind of strategy. On an emotional level, on a thematic level, we are now going to also, because Lewis is Murphy/Robocop's window character, we are going to gain access to the emotional state of our main character. Lewis has been that throughout the entire film for us. She's been our representative. This is a big payoff here because we've been wondering what Murphy looks like, how Robocop looks under the mask. Great shot here. Behind Robocop, we get the sense that half of his head is metallic. And then Lewis holds up a warped mirror, a piece of glass. Perfect, because it can't be a normal piece of glass. It has to be a funhouse kind of mirror. It has to be a representation of twisted humanity. This no longer is Murphy. It's someone who's been taken and mutated into something partially human. Murphy had a wife and a son, so now we get more window character, access to the inner workings of the main character. She moved away. Where did they go? They thought you were dead. Great shot of Peter Weller. Good acting. I still don't know how. How did they do this, dude? I mean, there's no CGI. Hour and 21 minutes, 49 seconds. He's in full Robocop costume effects. And it just looks awesome. that is better than any CGI that could have been done for this. It's palpable. You feel the oil, the chinks in the armor from the bullets, and the way that he plays the scene, you really get the emotional impact that life is gone and it affects him. That's what makes Robocop rise above its B-movie nature. This could easily have been a B-movie, but because it's a drama first, it's a solid drama with characters who are explored and developed, and then genres put on top of that, it's a movie that stands the test of time. It affects us emotionally. Those are the movies we remember. This is a great action film. It's something that absolutely sets a standard, and it needs to be learned from and remembered. It's such a great film. Cut to a meal. Now again, we have the drive out and the setup of the previous Clarence scene with Dick Jones. So we're wondering, okay, what's up with the gang? When are we going to see them? Love the irrationality of this character. As the cops are on strike, it's midnight, and all the criminals sort of just start going wild and looting. Emil takes that as a cue to, okay, fine, I'm going to loot also. For some reason, he throws his liquor through the window and turns up the TV, and we get another "I'll buy that for $1," which is hilarious. And then he goes into the truck and he takes out a crowbar and he breaks the rest of the glass. It's kind of like, why didn't he just use the crowbar and keep his drink? It would have been just as effective, but being caught up in the emotion of the moment from that criminal perspective, just like, who cares? I'll go steal more alcohol if I want it. Now everyone rendezvous at this location. Emil is sitting in the truck, so you can imagine that they were told that they're going to meet here. There are no cell phones, or they are around, but they're not really in popular use. There's no indication that there's any kind of radio communication in use, so they were just supposed to meet here. Okay, that's the logic of the scene. The guns are awesome. I like it. 1 hour, 24 minutes, 20 seconds. Great line. It's a great line because it's who the character is and it's the emotion of the moment. It's not intended as, I'll buy that for $1, but it becomes, I'll buy that for $1 because, again, we are emotionally affected by the exclamation point it gives to the action that's taking place on screen. It's all about the emotional impact for us. We feel that it was born out of that character's reaction to what he's doing. These weapons are high-tech, they're awesome, it's an action set piece, it delivers on the genre, we're totally into it, they're just destroying everything, it doesn't matter because they're going to be able to get more cars if they want them anyways. And we need to see what these guns are capable of doing because we need to believe that at this point there is a threat to Robocop. We know that if there's 100 or so police officers with automatic weapons that Robocop can be damaged, but if you have a gang of 4 or 5 people, there needs to be a logical, believable setup for us in order to be afraid for Robocop's safety. Clarence has got the weapon hookup from Dick, and we believe that if they get a clean shot of Robocop, he's falling apart. He's going to explode. We have literally a drive out as the cars drive off screen to the location where Robocop's at because Clarence shows that he has the homing device. They all take off. We have the setup, which is going to lead to the payoff of them arriving at this abandoned factory where Robocop is hiding out at. And we cut to that factory, 1 hour, 26 minutes, 17 seconds. Still can't get over how great the makeup here is, the costume, the special effects. Think about the nature of this movie. This is basically a face skin mask stretched over a robot, a cyborg. It's really twisted. The only human part of him right now that we see is just the face. And it's just this sad, kind of heartbreaking situation. He has all the memories of his human body, his human form, and it was a good life. And it was taken away by these guys. And now he's just this one-time human. And it looks really cool in the one sense from a sci-fi fan perspective, but when you get into the emotion of it, into who is this character and what does it mean for his reality, twisted and heartbreaking. The only filmmaker who would have made this even more disturbing, probably less action-y in terms of the action genre, but much more gut-wrenching and disturbing from the sci-fi idea level, would have been David Cronenberg. Now Murphy basically throws that warped piece of metal, that mirror that he was using to look at himself, he throws that at the people who made him who he is. Looking for me? Robocop becomes much like the Terminator in that he doesn't speak a lot, and he speaks in a very memorable kind of way, so anything he says tends to be a one-liner. But it's authentic, much like the Terminator spoke all of his dialogue because of who he was and what the situation required, not because he knew there was an audience watching and he wanted to impress them. Great action sequence starts out. Murphy's walking, everyone's shooting and blowing up. We want explosions. Watching this as an 11-year-old in the theater, this is just such a great, fun time as an action movie sci-fi fan. The bigger picture Verhoeven sort of satirical newscast and the humanity, transhuman stuff, don't really pick up on it at that age, but just like any great film, if you layer it, it comes out later. What a twisted, absolutely one of the most twisted and disturbing deaths for any henchman in any action movie ever. 1 hour, 29 minutes, 17 seconds. Emil as the toxic waste, skin melting, distorted. Oh man. He's like a goblin from Lord of the Rings. Oh man. So disgusting. So he drives in the truck at Robocop. Robocop jumps out of the way, and it's labeled really big, toxic waste. He crashes into it and then just spills out of the car. He's just it's like he's given birth to. And the toxic waste being the runoff from corporations, from industry. So there's this kind of commentary on humanity being thrown away, being morphed. It's all of that that has really transformed him. It's just a visual symbol. Oh, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 26 seconds. Clarence runs into Emil, and he literally explodes. He just explodes in a burst of body parts and blood. His head hits the windshield, and it's so ruthless. Oh my god, it seriously has to be one of the most gory and just disturbing bad guy deaths ever. You know, even though we hate the guy in terms of he's willing to just kill Murphy and he was going to probably waste that college student at the gas station, there's still a part of us that feels sorry for how he ended up, because that's just, oh my god, horrible. But you kind of feel like as a human being, that shape, that toxic waste version of him, that's almost like what his soul would have looked like because of all the horrible things that he's done. If you stripped away that outer skin, he would be this twisted, morphed, distorted, evil human because, he's a criminal and he's kind of done all these bad things. Whereas Murphy, now with the helmet off, is more human than any of these guys. And it's important that Murphy, Robocop, is fighting these guys in his human form, with his human face. He has to show them that he's the person that they killed and he's returned, and he wants justice in that human form. He's not the product. He's not OCP. He's Murphy. Really great set piece here. Love how Lewis gets to the gun and the guy's cheering and just explosion. It's as quick and as shocking when Clarence got out of the car and just shot Lewis in the shoulder right away. There's no big speech. There's no 3 minutes of setup. It's just boom, go right for it. And as Robocop here, 1 hour, 32 minutes, 35 seconds, is fighting Clarence and he gets stabbed. Sayonara, Robocop! We have the spike come out of Robocop's hand. And the jugular shot, which Verhoeven will call back in Total Recall when Quaid is being locked down in the chair and he's trying to escape. All the blood on Robocop. It's quick, but it's also justified in terms of the battle between these two characters. And we get that Clarence has finally got justice, and we feel satisfied from it. They'll fix you. They fix everything. Great line, nice little commentary. Murphy and Robocop have gotten justice on the criminals that have made him who he is. There's only one more element of resolution that we need in order to feel fully satisfied. Each of those bad guys were killed in a satisfying manner in terms of our emotion. Because of what they did to Murphy, we wanted to see them punished in a science fiction, action, fictional movie setting. And it really came through. Ed 209 not messing around this time. He shows up and Robocop just pulls out an OCP gun and destroys an OCP product with it. Little comedic kind of moment here again where the legs of Ed 209 spin around like a top, losing its energy, and it falls over. And that nice little twitch. I like that twitch. That really just gives a little sense that it is a piece of technology and there's a circuit that keeps firing over and over. Once again, we return to the boardroom. Dick Jones is presenting, and he just cannot finish a presentation without somebody dying. He's cursed. Robocop this time coming in as Murphy, no longer really controlled by his programs, explains the situation. Now he's going to use the interface to play the message, which we didn't see that he was exactly recording, but we now believe that of course he does because he records everything else. I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake. Shot of Donald. Great shot there. And he's pissed off. He's like, you killed my friend. That's funny. And that character, Donald, just kind of speaks for Bob Morton. So we get the sense of, okay, no one really likes Dick Jones. And he's representing our hatred for him too. If we've seen that character throughout the film, we need to have his emotional reactions whenever he's any kind of scene. Keep that consistency. The old geezer gets it. Dick, you're fired! Thank you. Love it. Love that interchange. Nice and quick. Really great pace. Robocop starts shooting. Cut to Donald again, getting up and happy. Dick falling out of the window and down the building. Looks a little bit cheesy by today's standards. The thumbs up at Robo. And we get the TJ laser shot. Really well done. Everything starts paying off. Boom, boom, rapid fire. It all comes together. Nice shooting, son. What's your name? Murphy. Cue the music. Boom. Robocop. Done. End on the high note. The music is just blaring, crescendo. We get the theme, directed by Verhoeven. And just sitting there watching this film, we're overcome. Wow, that was great. All the resolutions happen. Boom, boom, boom. Act 3. We get everything resolved properly. Main character, his objective. We know what happens to the window character. We know what happens to every single bad guy, the minions. And then the main character and his theme. What's your name? Murphy. Done. We get the sense, now we know, he's referring to himself as a human being, Rob Bottin. Let's give special effects master Rob Bottin a lot of credit here for Ed 209, the robo design. It looks real enough. It still holds up after 25 years. And it's going to be interesting to see what a CGI version of RoboCop's going to look like. But emotionally, the most important thing is, are we emotionally satisfied with what happened the last 5 minutes of this film? The answer is yes. The way that Dick Jones dies, so great. Logic is flawless. Dick, you're fired. Boom, the Directive 4 disappears. Now justice can be served. I remember riding my bike to the theater to see this. And as I'm walking in to see the 2 in the afternoon show, the previous screening, the 12 o'clock screening, is letting out. And there are these 2 teenagers walking past. And they're laughing. And one of them says, "Dick, you're fired." And they didn't really reveal that that was the end of the film. Kind of mimics that Homer moment in The Simpsons when they flash back to him leaving The Empire Strikes Back. And he says, "Darth Vader was his father," and everyone in line hears it and they all start moaning about it. That's a sign of a great film, when you're walking out of the theater and you're already quoting the lines. You're already remembering the parts that made you cheer and kind of move forward in your seat and just think, wow, I've never seen anything like this. This is 1987, and it's going to be 3 years until we get a sequel. The success of this film is a surprise. As mentioned before, it does have reference points in pop culture, but at that time, marketing was nowhere near as sophisticated and as omnipresent as it is now. So it really was the notion of a Terminator sort of play on Dirty Harry, Judge Dredd thing that was propelling this. But because it is a high concept, it's Robocop, and that idea of a robot cop is so appealing. The notion of robots, the notion of technology, starting to become a major factor in everyday life, was becoming a thing in the late 80s. Computer boom didn't happen again until the early to the mid 90s. The notion of a cyborg, of a robot cop, seemed so beyond anything. The high concept in the marketing does enough of a job to get that initial push for a crowd to check this out opening week. What really helps Robocop, what really propels it, is the word of mouth. It's people watching it and saying, this is a fun film. This delivers in every kind of way that you would want it. Most of us are going to go into this thinking, I just want to watch really cool effects. I want to see a fun story, a lot of action. I want it to make sense, and hopefully it'll be something that I can watch again. Now, not knowing screenplay structure, not knowing how all the magic works behind the scenes, the reason that it sticks with us, same way that the Terminator does, is that it's about characters, it's about people, and it's about their emotional state, and everything that happens affects them. Terminator also has bigger societal ideas going along with it. It's talking about nuclear holocaust. It's talking about the robot takeover of humanity, the enslavement of humanity by robots. But it's really a story about a guy from the future trying to save the mother of the savior of the future, and them falling in love, and looking at society and how it is and how it's going to change in the future. That's that emotional core of the Terminator, and how Arnold Schwarzenegger as a bad guy is so unstoppable, so ruthless, but so authentic to what that character is. Terminator is played as a straight-up drama that happens to be a sci-fi action film. Robocop the same way. It's a little more self-aware in its commentary on society and its satire because of the commercials and of the newscasts. But when we're in that story about Murphy, who was killed, who became a robot through this program and rediscovers his history, then seeks justice on those who took away his life and put him into this nightmare of an existence, it works because it's all centered in that character. And whenever anything happens, whenever he runs into a member of the gang, whenever there's a shootout, it's always emotionally based. As he's seeking Clarence in that drug lab, as he's running from the cops who are shooting him in the parking garage, as Lewis is telling him what happened to his family, it's all playing on our emotions, of course with the help of a great score that totally deserves a lot of credit and should be remembered for what it accomplishes here. Robocop Part 1 succeeds because of all those elements. At the beginning of this commentary, I mentioned that it's an experience we don't get to have much of nowadays. Because now Hollywood is in a fear-driven green light mentality, because the economy is in a sensitive state, giving the go-ahead to a project that is not an adaptation of a book or a TV show or isn't a remake or a reboot of something is a risk. And the experience that we got to have as an audience in 1987 with Robocop was going in not knowing what we were going to get. We were about to be surprised. We were going to have that joy of discovery in the theater. without reading a blog, without having anything given away to us, without being overly saturated with marketing, with clips. We're going in pretty fresh, and we're about to discover something. That joy of discovery, that's what we don't get to have nowadays. For a summer would-be blockbuster movie, that's a high concept, the high concept being the only element of this that would be attractive to anyone greenlighting pictures today. Robocop. It's a very slam dunk, communicates the story and the idea to anyone who asks what it is kind of concept. That's what's appealing to Hollywood or StoryCorp nowadays. But it's a risk that really wouldn't be taken. It's something that might end up on the Sci-Fi Channel. And because the proper amount of budget isn't allocated to it, because an ambitious, energetic filmmaker isn't attached to it, because quality actors aren't involved in it, because it doesn't get that mainstream process put in, Robocop of the 2012, if it was an original idea or a spec screenplay, would never become this. And we in today's movie-going world seek movies like this but don't get to have them that often. What we're going to get instead is Robocop the remake. Next year, 2013. There's already viral video teasers available on the internet. And the question we have to ask is why? Why do we need this film? Well, why did we need it in 1987? The answer is, of course, that Orion wanted to make some money, and they did with this. They picked a really marketable project. Nothing wrong with that. Storytelling on the big screen is commercial art. Hopefully, there's a meshing of those two worlds, though. Hopefully, it's about saying something through the art of movie making, but also saying it in a mainstream way that leads to profit. There are so many movies over the years that have helped to define what the American movie is about. And as I mentioned earlier, the definition tends to be a main character in pursuit of an objective, trying to overcome opposition with someone to talk to, with an underlying theme, and resolves in an emotionally satisfying way. When you look at most mainstream Hollywood films, that definition applies to all of them. And that generally obeys the laws of classic dramatic storytelling. Give me a character who wants something, who passionately desires something. And if they don't get that thing, there's something at stake for them. There's something that they're going to lose, they're not going to get. They really care, they're invested in it. And there has to be someone who's stopping them. So there's a reason they cannot get what they want. And along the way, they talk to someone about how everything's making them feel. And it's an emotional, thematic journey. Of course, there are variations on this. Our intention here is not to get into this, but as Robocop in 1987 comes out, it's a new concept. The practice of adapting other mediums hasn't really taken hold. Of course, there are books and remakes going on, but not to the level that we have today. Robocop is a leap of faith for Orion, a screenplay that is refined as a spec script because it has to be. It has to prove that it's a good story, so the writers take their time reworking it and making sure the drama is character-based and the characters are three-dimensional and that they fit within their world and the world is thought through. And at the same time, it's able to take our society, take the current concerns, work it into the movie, and have something to say about it so that you can go back and look at Robocop on a lot of different levels. You can really analyze it from the point of view of what happens when humans merge with machines, or what happens when corporations start to privatize everything, or what does it really mean to be human, and what are the bonds of family, and do we appreciate the risks that police officers take and the safety that they provide us. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and what's the nature of news broadcasts and commercials and violence. This film has a lot to say on violence because it is so violent. All those different aspects of Robocop make it what it is and really bring it to a upper echelon level of sci-fi, action, big screen storytelling. We have to ask ourselves, why are we going to see this film if we are? Well, we know the reason it's being made. Because Robocop is a very marketable name. It is marketable because it made a lot of money when it first came out. It spawned sequels. It spawned a TV show. It's been in public consciousness for over 20 years. There's been toy lines. If you say RoboCop to anyone over the age of 10, they pretty much know what it is. So that equals a green light for a remake. All we need to do, if you're a studio, is give RoboCop a cool redesign. The reason RoboCop is being made is because it's going to make easy money. If we look at RoboCop as a story, functioning as part of the human diet of storytelling that we need to survive, we as people go to our myths, to our fables, to our stories to help inform us on how we process reality. It's through the arts that reality is digested and then decoded so that we can understand it. We sense it on a level, but in a lot of ways it takes a painting from Picasso or a novel from Nabokov or a Michael Moore documentary or a Paul Verhoeven science fiction film to help make sense of some things that are going on in an entertaining, distance kind of way. Story helps to provide a map of the territory of life. If RoboCop was dealing with the issues we mentioned in 1987, what are the elements of our current life that it has the opportunity to explore in its new incarnation? There's nothing wrong with remaking or rebooting any kind of story as long as there's a inspired life to its characters and its exploration of that world. In a lot of ways, in 2012 and 2013, the factors that formed the world of RoboCop, the Detroit of RoboCop, that were leading to the new Delta City of RoboCop are absolutely still in play. They have actually grown. They've become enormous. They've become that much more heightened. So is RoboCop just going to be a film where an actor puts on a super sleek CGI improved suit, guns down bad guys with some really cool technology, has fun one-liners in the midst of creating big explosions and a lot of carnage? That's going to be really entertaining. That could be fun. But unfortunately, it's going to be forgettable. We'll leave the theater and we'll probably be saying something like, it was better looking than the original. That explosion was cool. Or that line was funny. Or Peter Weller made a better RoboCop. I like the original. There was something missing. The teasing pictures and stills and videos that we're getting of the new RoboCop point to a lot of effort being taken on the exterior look of the character. The key for the filmmakers is to remember the reason this film sticks with us, the reason it became part of our pop culture, that we included it in our lexicon of myths that we refer to, is that it was based in character. It was really the journey of Murphy. It was the emotional impact of everything that took place on screen that stuck with us. It's a heart-wrenching story. It's a really twisted idea. And because of the unique personalities from Murphy to Lewis to Dick Jones to Clarence Boddicker to everyone in the film, it feels like it has a heartbeat. It's alive. It's inspired. It's energetic. And that's why we can go back to it today and enjoy it as much as we did back then. I have an uneasy feeling that the remake will have the same problems the sequels did. RoboCop did become a trilogy, probably one of the most forgettable trilogies in recent memory. The major mistake the sequels make, they take the focus away from Murphy and they make it more about OCP, about the opponents, about new characters coming into the film, the mayor, other executives at OCP, and they forget that the whole point of continuing a story about a RoboCop, about a guy who ended the first film by saying, "My name is Murphy," is that we, the audience, want to see what else will happen to that character, and that has to be different from what we've seen already in the original film. We leave both sequels feeling that we've seen everything before, and there's a sense of exhaustion, of tiredness, of not having been asleep for like 2 days, that everything's blurring together and nothing's really that different. And that's because Murphy is stuck. He doesn't move forward. He stays where he is for the next 2 films. And the gimmicks of RoboCop are focused on more than the humanity. Yeah, he's got a cool gun. He's got targeting systems. He can record anything that he sees. Bullets bounce off of his armor. That's really fun the first time we see it, but what else is there? If there isn't a Clarence Boddicker type opponent, if there isn't a Murphy being brutally killed tragedy in the following films, if there isn't that emotional torment seeking a cathartic resolution, we don't care. And watching explosions and shootouts and hearing tired one-liners starts to become annoying and boring. And unfortunately, that's what happened with the next two films, even though Frank Miller was involved in writing them. Yes, the Frank Miller from the comic book world, The Dark Knight Returns. And the director of the second RoboCop would be the same director of Empire Strikes Back, and the director of Part 3 would be the man responsible for the Monster Squad. So it's always interesting how filmmakers who have proven themselves with other projects are not automatically guaranteed success with their new ones. The key is to maintain respect for the dramatic structure. It's always character-based storytelling first.
What a great film, and it just feels like nothing really can be added in a remake. Nonetheless, in the comments section below, leave your thoughts regarding the following questions. Other than updating the special effects, what other elements of the original can be improved upon in a remake? Is there any way that a new version of Clarence Boddicker is going to be better than this one? Who can play Dick Jones better than Ronnie Cox? Who realized before that last sentence that both the actor and his character's name refer to a man's Ronnie Jones? Are you planning to see the RoboCop remake? Why or why not? That's it for the RoboCop Movie Night. Thanks very much for hanging out. The analysis continues with the movie night for RoboCop 2, which will premiere on March 1st. Until then, remember that Hwood, aka StoryCorp, always give us more of what we pay for, so let's remember to choose our movies wisely. And, as always, long live good movies.